Okay, class, a new week is upon us in our Digital Learning and Communication class, September 26th through October 1st. It's the 26th today, and I wanted to get you kicked off on some activities. So first you'll have some readings to do, and that includes the textbook chapter 4 and a few other what makes an instructional video compelling, this article on what makes an instructional video compelling. That's a good thing to read because you're creating your lessons with a flipped classroom, and you want to make sure that those videos that you create are actually going to be watched. And that's kind of the trick with this flipped classroom idea, is that the videos are compelling enough to be watched by your students and not just glossed over or forgotten. And then there's a graduate reading as well, The Flipped Classroom, a survey of the research. So that's a nice little survey of some of the research on flipped classrooms thus far. And we always like to look into the research, right, before we adopt a practice. So those are some of the readings. This week you also have some presentations on Panopto and Camtasia, two of the possible tools that you could use for your assignment. These are more sophisticated and more feature-rich than the ones that were presented in presentations last week. So Panopto and Camtasia, two options again for you to create your flipped classroom lessons that you can use. And then finally, setting the tone. So in pages 74 through 78 of the textbook, the author discusses the different roles that you might play as a teacher as you work with an online class. And so I want you to discuss some of those roles that are mentioned and tell how they differ from face-to-face teaching when you are teaching online. So for instance, how would your role as a guide on the side or instructor or group process facilitator advisor change when you move from teaching face-to-face to teaching online? And that's just kind of a way to think differently a little bit about the teaching enterprise and how it works online. So that's what's going on this week, although you'll want to be aware that by the end of next week your flipped classroom project assignment is due. So you need to have that completed by next week. So that might be something, of course, that you'll want to be working on and working toward. And I wanted to share a little bit about that as we get started here. Just a little more from the flipped classroom idea, flipping your class. So as you remember, as I presented last week, lectures and presentations in a flipped class are offered online, and then in-class activities build upon the lectures and presentations that are already watched. So students already watch those before they come to class, and they might do things like labs, projects, worksheets, problems, or group work while they're in class, not as homework. So it's a flipped classroom in that way, as I mentioned before. And if you notice that, of course, the presentations that you have students watch would have to do with the in-class work. So there's some overlap there, right? The presentations prepare your students for some in-class work and help them to be ready for that. So with the assignment that you're going to have to complete by the end of next week, again, you're going to choose a lesson objective, and you will record two 10 to 20 minute lessons and plan 2 class periods of about 45 minutes each that will help meet this objective or standard. Now, some of you are not teachers, and so that kind of opens up things as far as the standards go. You can choose a variety of standards that might work for your target audience if you want to, if you're not teaching kind of your own class group. So be aware of that. It doesn't necessarily have to be one of the South Dakota state standards or Common Core standards. Instead, it does need to be something that could be useful. I know we have a preschool, for instance, teacher in our class, and that might be, obviously it wouldn't work with standards in that case. So that's okay. Let's see. You also have to record one lesson with one tool and one lesson with another tool. So that means you're learning 2 different tools for this project. You can't just record them both with the same one. That's something to remember as well. And each lesson is just 10 to 20 minutes in length. They don't need to be very long. Again, as I mentioned, flipped classroom lessons are often a lot shorter than the lecture you might give in class because you don't have the Q&A, you don't have the time where you are adjusting or responding. Instead, you just try to give it short and sweet, and then hopefully students can learn the concept in that shorter length. So each lesson includes a lecture or presentation that could have been given in a face-to-face class. and includes audio and visual elements, good voice and audio quality, and it should be accurate and clear. And then the lesson plan should provide these elements: a brief title and summary. Our lesson title and summary: briefly describe your learners, what grade and subject are they, list the learning objective. And again, if you don't fit the standard, then you can just put a learning objective instead. A list of materials and technologies used by the teacher and students, and a timeline of activities that you would do during the lesson plan. And then an assessment plan. How would you measure student learning? And again, one thing that it asks here is, how will you determine if students watched last night's recorded lesson for homework? So that could be, that could probably go informal, or it could go formal assessment. So however that works for you. And then this is the rubric for it. You know, did the recorded lessons include clear and accurate content, audio and visual elements, good voice and audio quality, and is it appropriate for flipped classroom situations? And the two lessons use different tools. So again, remember that they have to use different tools so that I can see that you have a variety of tools at your disposal. And then the plans, the class plans, lesson titles and summaries provided, learners adequately described, learning objective is listed and strongly supported, complete list of required materials and technologies is included, the timeline of activities that adequately describes what would happen in the classroom for both class plans. So again, there are 2 class periods, 2 lessons, and each one of them has to have a lesson plan for the 2 class periods. So as we've talked about asynchronous communication tools, we've already mentioned a few, and you've already watched some presentations last week about how to use some of those tools. And those include these simple ones: PowerPoint, EduCreations, and Screencast-O-Matic. And what I would call these are the simple ones because they have limited or no editing. And it is pretty easy to set up and record with these types of tools. Most of them have a limit of time that you can record a presentation. It might be, I think Screencast-O-Matic is just 15 minutes, so be aware of that. I use Screencast-O-Matic to do these videos right now. PowerPoint I don't think has a limit in their time. EduCreations I'm not sure about. But they are simple. You don't have much of a chance to go back and fix things, so instead you have to kind of fix things on the way, you know, as you record. Make sure that you, I guess, fix any mistakes that you make as you record, and just go forward, because you won't be able to go back and really edit something. And then there are some complex tools like Panopto and Camtasia, and that's what we're learning about a little bit more this week, are the complex ones. And these include editing options, so you can actually go back and change, maybe cut out 15 seconds of recording or whatever you want to do. And you can also add in elements to these types of tools, like you can add in things like callouts, transitions, titles, zoom, and audio, that you can actually add in audio after the fact. And so so that especially Camtasia allows you to do those things, and then put on finishing touches basically onto your presentations. But however, I know most of you, and I know something about most of you anyway, and I know that you're probably not going to have a lot of extra time to go through and edit. And as a teacher, you often don't have a lot of time. Instead, you have to just kind of go with it, record it. You know your topic, so you're pretty good at probably presenting it. And so those simple ones are probably going to fit the bill a little bit better for you. But we do have these as options, and in fact at Northern State University we have a subscription to Panopto. Camtasia, you can actually go to their site and download a free version that you can try out. I think it's a 30-day trial version that you can have, and you can actually record all that you need to record for this assignment with Camtasia if you want to. Panopto, let me know if you'd like to use Panopto. We actually have it at Northern State, so I can set you up an account and get it going pretty quick. But you do have to let me know. So if you have one of these at your school, though, and you're being encouraged by a principal or somebody to use one of these, then it might be good to choose Panopto or Camtasia to record with, because they will provide you with opportunities to learn and grow in new ways, and you'll be fitting what your school is trying to move toward. A lot of people use these tools when they have adopted more of a flipped classroom approach for the entire district or school. they'll have one of these tools available. So those are the simple and complex types of tools that you can learn about, and you'll be learning more about the complex ones this week. And I think that's about it for flipping your class. The trick right now is just to get started, to plan out what you're going to say. I do not suggest that you script out every word that you're going to say, but instead just have an idea, have an outline ready. And if it's a PowerPoint presentation, that will help, right? Because that will help you know what to say. But if it's not, then have a plan in place, a good outline of what to say and what to talk about in your recorded lessons. And then, of course, start making your lesson plans as well, so that you'll be ready by the end of next week to submit this assignment to me so that I can view it. All right, well, have a great week. Oh, and whoops, I forgot to mention one thing. I will be holding office hours, online office hours, on Wednesday at 5 Central Time this week, so I just wanted to make you aware of that as well, that on Wednesday at 5 I'll create a little place where you can go in and participate and ask questions if you want to. All right, now have a great week.